Good morrow, scholars. Well, by the time this gets uploaded, I just released a video explaining my absence this past week, essentially. So, if you don't want to watch the entire thing, just know that I lost something important to me. I say something to me, it's someone. I get devastated when something like this happens. You guys who have been here for a while would probably remember Monty, or when we lost Plato. Anyway, I don't need another 10-minute video on why I was gone and why I was so upset. Anyway, we are in chapter 60, Grace, 36 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, real quick, I have a lot more pages left than I thought I did, so I might end up making 2 videos instead of just 1. I haven't decided. I know some people prefer a longer video, but if I do, it's probably going to be almost an hour long, and I haven't decided whether or not I want to do that. Anyway, 36 degrees Fahrenheit, page 363. The evening was steel gray, the sky an endless expanse of frozen clouds waiting for snow and for night. Outside the SUV, the tires crunched along salted roads, and sleet tapped on the windshield. Inside, behind the wheel, Isabel kept complaining about the wet mutt smell. But to me, it was pine and earth, rain and musk, and behind it, the sharp, contagious edge of anxiety. In the passenger seat, Jack kept whining softly, halfway between animal and human. Olivia sat beside me in the back seat. Her fingers knotted so tightly in mine that it hurt. I think the turtles are hungry again. Sam was behind us. When we had lifted him into the SUV, his body was heavy with drug-induced sleep. Now his breaths were deep and uneven, and I strained to listen to them over the sound of slush spraying from the tires to maintain some kind of connection with him when I couldn't touch him. With him drugged, I could have sat with him and run my fingers through his fur, but it would have been torment for him. He was an animal now, back in his world, far away from me. Isabel pulled up in front of the little clinic. At this hour, the parking lot was dark and unlit. The clinic itself was a little gray square. It didn't look like a place to work miracles. It looked like a place you came when you were sick and had no money. I pushed the thought out of my head. I stole the keys from Mom, Isabel said. To her credit, she didn't sound nervous. Come on, Jack. Can you try the beep? Not to savage someone before we get inside. Jack muttered something unrepeatable. I looked in the back. Sam was on his feet, swaying. Isabel, hurry up. The Benadryl's wearing off. Isabel wrenched up the parking brake. If we get arrested, I'm telling them you all abducted me. At least she has her priorities. Come on, I snapped. I opened my door. Olivia and Jack both winced at the cold. Hurry up. You two need to run. I'll come back to help you with him, Isabel told me, and leapt out of the SUV. I turned back around to Sam, who rolled his eyes up toward me. He seemed disoriented, groggy. I was momentarily frozen by his gaze, remembering Sam lying in bed, nose to nose with me, eyes looking into mine. He made a soft noise of anxiety. I'm sorry, I told him. Isabel returned, and I came around back to help her. She pulled off her belt and expertly twisted it around Sam's muzzle. I winced, but I couldn't tell her not to. She had been bitten, and there was no guarantee of how Sam would... she hadn't been bitten, how Sam would react to this process. Between the two of us, we lifted him and crab-walked to the clinic. Isabel kicked open the door, which was already slightly ajar. Exam rooms are that way. Lock him in one of those, and we'll do Olivia and Jack first. Maybe he'll turn back again if he's in the heat long enough. Isabel's lie was extraordinarily kind. We both knew he wasn't changing without some kind of miracle. The best I could hope for was that Sam had been wrong, that this cure wouldn't kill him when he was a wolf. I followed Isabel to a little supply room, cluttered and stinking with a sort of medicinal rubber scent. I've never liked that smell. Olivia and Jack were already waiting there, heads ducked together as if they were talking, which surprised me. Jack lifted his head when we came in. "I can't stand this waiting," he said. "Can we just get the beep over with?" I looked at a bin of alcohol wipes. "Do I need to prep his arm?" Isabel gave me a look. "We're intentionally infecting him with meningitis. It seems pointless to be worried about infection at the injection site." I don't know. I swabbed his arm anyway, while Isabel retrieved a blood-filled syringe from the fridge. "Oh, geez," Olivia whispered, her eyes frozen on the syringe. We didn't have time to comfort her. I took Jack's cold hand and turned it so that it was palm up, like I remembered seeing the nurse do before our rabies shots. Isabel looked at Jack. "You sure you want to do this?" He lifted his teeth in a snarl. He stank of fear. "Just do it." Isabel hesitated. It took me a moment to realize why. "Let me do it," I told her. "He can't hurt me." Isabel handed me the syringe and ducked inside. I took her place. "Look the other way," I ordered Jack. He turned his head away. I stuck the needle in, then smacked his face with my free hand as he jerked back around toward me. "Control yourself," I snapped. "You're not an animal." He whispered, "Sorry." I depressed the syringe fully, trying not to think too hard about the bloody contents of it, and pulled out the needle. There was a dot of red at the injection site. I didn't know if it was Jack's blood or infected blood from the syringe. Isabel was just staring at it, so I turned around, grabbed a Band-Aid, and stuck it over the site. Olivia let out a low moan. "Thank you," Jack said. He hugged his arms around himself. Isabel looked sick. "Just give me the other one," I said to Isabel. Isabel handed it to me, and we turned to Olivia, who was so pale that I could see the vein running over her temple. Nerves shook her hands. "How's it going, Pancake?" "There's a mama cat outside. She sometimes hangs out in the garage that looks just like this cat, only pregnant, because she's pregnant." Anyway, where was I? Isabel took over my duty of swabbing the arm. It was like an unspoken rule that we both had to feel useful to make the hateful task possible. "I changed my mind," Olivia cried. "I don't want to do it. I'll take my chances." I took her hand. "Olivia, I'll live." "Calm down." "I can't." Olivia's eyes were on the dark red of the syringe. "I can't say that I'd rather die than be this way." I didn't know what to say. I didn't want to convince her to do something that could kill her, but I didn't want her not to do it, out of fear. "But your whole life, Olivia." Olivia shook her head. No, it's not worth it. Let Jack try it. I'll take my chances. If it works on him, then I'll try it. But I can't." "You do know it's nearly November, right?" Isabel demanded. "It's freezing cold. You're going to change soon for the winter, and we won't get another chance until spring." "Just let her wait," Jack snapped. "There's no harm. Better her parents think she's missing for a few months than find out she's a werewolf." "Please." Olivia's eyes were full of tears. I shrugged helplessly and put down the syringe. I didn't know any more than she did, and in my heart I knew that, in her position, I'd make the same choice. Better to live with her beloved wolves than die of meningitis. "Fine," Isabel said. "Jack, take Olivia out to the car. Wait there and keep an eye out. Okay, Grace, let's go see what Sam's done to the exam room while we were gone." Jack and Olivia headed down the hallway, pressed against each other for warmth. Trying not to shift, and Isabel and I turned to go to the wolf, who already had. Standing just outside the exam room, where Sam was, Isabel put her hand on my arm, stopping me before I turned the door handle. "Are you sure you want to do this?" she asked. It could kill him. Probably will kill him." Instead of answering, I pushed open the door. In the ugly fluorescent lighting of the room, Sam looked ordinary, dog-like, small, crouched beside the exam table. I missed a word. I knelt, in front of him, wishing that we'd thought of this possible cure before it was too late for him. Probably. "Sam, I don't want to stand before you like a thing, shrewd, secretive. I had known that the heat wouldn't change him back to human. It was nothing but selfishness that had made me bring him to the clinic. Selfishness and a fallible cure that couldn't possibly work for him in this form. Sam, do you still want to do this?" I touched his ruff, imagining it as his dark hair. I swallowed unhappily. Sam whistled through his nose. I had no idea how much he understood of what I said, only that, in his semi-drugged state, he didn't flinch under my touch. I tried again. "It could kill you. Do you still want to try?" Behind me, Isabel coughed, meaningfully. Sam whined at the noise, I stroking to Isabel and the door. I stroked his head and looked into his eyes. Heavens, they were the same. It killed me to look at them now. This has to work. A tear slid down my face. I didn't bother to wipe it away as I looked up at Isabel. I wanted this like I'd never wanted anything. We have to do it. Isabel didn't move. "Grace, I don't think he stands a chance unless he's human. I just don't think it will work." I ran a finger over the short, smooth hair on the side of his face. If he hadn't been sedated, he wouldn't have tolerated it, but the Benadryl had dulled his instincts. He closed his eyes. It was unwolf-like enough to give me hope. "Grace, are we doing this or not? Seriously." "Wait," I said. "I'm trying something." I settled on the floor and whispered to Sam. "I want you to listen to me if you can." I leaned the side of my face against his ruff and remembered the golden wood he had shown me so long ago. I remembered the way the yellow leaves, the color of Sam's eyes, fluttered and twisted, crashing butterflies on their way to the ground. The slender white trunks of birches, creamy and smooth as human skin. That sounds oddly serial killer-esque. I don't know. Where was I? I remembered Sam standing in the middle of the wood, his arms stretched out, a dark, solid form in the dream of the trees. His coming to me punching his chest, the soft kiss. I remembered every kiss we'd ever had, and I remembered every time I'd curled in his human arms. I remembered the soft warmth of his breath on the back of my neck while we slept. I remembered Sam. I remembered him forcing himself out of wolf form for me, to save me. Sam jerked away from me, his head was lowered, tail between his legs, and he was shaking. Isabel, what? What's happening? Isabel's hand was on the doorknob. Sam backed away farther, crashing into the cabinet behind him, curling into a ball, uncurling. He was peeling free. He was shaking out of his fur. He was a wolf, and he was Sam, and then he was just Sam. Huh. That's interesting. Oh. What are they doing? Okay, now I understand. Hurry, Sam whispered. He was jerking hard against the cabinet. His fingers were claws on the tile. Hurry, do it now. Sorry. Isabel was frozen by the door. Isabel, come on! She snapped out of her spell and came over to us. She crouched beside Sam, next to the bare expanse of his back. He was biting his lip so hard that it was bleeding. I knelt, took his hand. His voice was strained. Grace, hurry, I'm almost gone. Isabel didn't ask any more questions. She just grabbed his arm, turned it, and jabbed the needle in. She depressed the syringe halfway, but it jerked out of his arm as he seized violently. Sam backed away from me, tucking his hand from mine, and threw up. Sam. But he was gone. In half the time it had taken him to become human, he was a wolf. Shaking, staggering, nails scratching on the tiles, falling to the floor. I'm sorry, Grace, Isabel said. That was all she said. She laid the syringe on the counter. Drat. I hear Jack. I'll be right back. The door opened and closed. I knelt next to Sam's body and buried my face in his fur. His breaths were ragged and exhausted, and all I could think was, I killed him. This is going to kill him. Chapter 61. Grace. 36 degrees Fahrenheit. Jack was the one who opened the exam room door. Grace, come on, we have to go. Olivia's not doing so good. I stood, embarrassed to be found with tear-stained cheeks. I turned to tip the used syringe into the hazardous waste container by the counter. I need help carrying him. He scowled at me. That's why Isabel sent me in here. I looked down and my heart stopped. Empty floor. I spun, ducking my head to look under the table. Sam? Jack had left the door open. The room was empty. Help me find him, I shouted at Jack, pushing past him into the hallway. There was no sign of Sam. As I pelted down the hall, I could see the door wide open at the end of it, black night staring in. It was the first place a wolf would have run to once his drugs wore off. Escape, the night, the cold. I spun in the parking lot, looking for any sign of Sam in the slender finger of boundary wood that stretched behind the clinic. But it was darker than dark. No lights, no sound, no Sam. Boots. That scared me. Sam. I knew he wouldn't come, even if he had heard me. Sam was strong, but his instincts were stronger. It was intolerable to imagine him out there somewhere, half a vial of infected blood mixing slowly with his. Sam! My voice was a wail, a howl, a cry in the night. He was gone. Headlights blinded me, Isabel's SUV tearing up beside me and shuddering to a stop. Isabel leaned over from the driver's side and shoved an open passenger side door. My dogs bark at the weirdest things, I bet. Anyway, where was I? Isabel leaned over from the driver's side and shoved open the passenger side door, her face a ghost in the lights of the dashboard. Get in, Grace. Hurry the beep up. Olivia is changing, and we've been here way too long already. I couldn't leave him. Grace! Jack climbed into the back seat, shuddering. His eyes pleaded with me. They were the same eyes I'd seen at the very beginning, back when he'd first turned, back before I'd known anything at all. I got in and slammed the door shut, looking out the window, just in time to see a white wolf standing by the edge of the parking lot. Shelby. Alive, just like Sam had thought. I stared in the rearview mirror at her. The wolf stood in the parking lot and gazed after us. I thought I saw triumph in her eyes as she turned and disappeared into the darkness. Which wolf is that? Isabel demanded. But I couldn't answer. All I could think was Sam. Sam. Let's see. I've got about 18 pages left, so I guess why not make this an extra long episode. Chapter 62. Grace. 40 degrees Fahrenheit. I don't think Jack's doing well, Olivia said. She sat in the passenger seat of my new car, a little Mazda that smelled like carpet cleaner and loneliness. Even though she wore 2 of my sweaters and a stocking cap, she was still shaking, her hands wrapped around her stomach. If he was doing well, Isabel would have called us. Maybe, I said. Isabel isn't the calling sort. But I couldn't help but think that she was right. This was day 3, and the last we'd heard from Isabel was 8 hours ago. Day 1, Jack had a splitting headache and a stiff neck. Day 2, headache worse, running a temperature. Day 3, Isabel's voicemail. I pulled the Mazda into Beck's driveway and parked behind Isabel's giant SUV. Ready? Olivia didn't look like she was, but she got out of the car and bolted for the front door. I followed her in and shut the door behind us. Isabel? In here. We followed her voice into one of the downstairs bedrooms. It was a cheery, yellow little bedroom that seemed at odds with the decomposing odor of sick that filled the space. Isabel sat cross-legged on a chair at the foot of the bed. Deep circles like purple thumbprints were pressed beneath her eyes. I handed her the coffee we'd brought. Why didn't you call us? Isabel looked at me. His fingers are dying. I'd been avoiding looking at him, but I did, finally, where he lay on the bed, curled like a half-done butterfly. The ends of his fingertips were a disconcerting shade of blue. His face was shiny with sweat, his eyes closed. My throat felt too full. I looked it up online, Isabel told me. She held up her phone as if that explained everything. His headache is because the lining of his brain is inflamed. The fingers and toes are blue because his brain isn't telling his body to send blood there anymore. I took his temperature. It was 105. Olivia said, I have to throw up. She left me in the room with Isabel and Jack. I didn't know what to say. If Sam had been here, he would have known the right thing to say. I'm sorry. Isabel shrugged, eyes dull. It worked the way it was supposed to. The first day, he almost changed into a wolf when the temperature dropped overnight. That was the last time, even when the power went down last night. I thought it was working. He hasn't changed since his fever got going. She made a little gesture toward the bed. Did you make an excuse for me at school? Yes. Fantastic. I gestured for her to follow me. She stood up from her chair as if it was difficult for her and trailed me into the hall. I pulled the bedroom door almost shut so that Jack, if he was listening, wouldn't overhear. In a low voice, I said, We have to take him to the hospital, Isabel. Isabel laughed, a weird, ugly sound. And tell them what? He's supposed to be dead. You think I haven't been thinking about this? Even if we get a fake name, his face has been all over the news for 2 months. And we just take our chances, right? We'll come up with some story. I mean, we have to try, at least, right? What would you do in that situation? She looked up at me with her red-rimmed eyes for a long moment. When she finally spoke, her voice was hollow. Do you think I want him to die? Don't you think I want to save him? It's too late, Grace. It's hard for people to survive this kind of meningitis, even if they've gotten treatment from the very beginning. Right now, for him, after 3 days, I don't even have painkillers to give him, much less anything that might do something for this. I thought the wolf part might save him, like it saved you, but he doesn't have a chance. Not a chance. I took the coffee cup out of her hands. We can't just watch him die. We'll take him to a hospital that won't know him right away. We'll drive to Duluth if we have to. They won't recognize him there, at least not right away, and by then we'll have thought of something to tell them. Go clean up your face and get whatever stuff you want to bring. Come on, Isabel. Move. Isabel still didn't answer, but she headed for the stairs. After she'd gone, I went into the downstairs bathroom, sorry. and opened up the cupboard, thinking there might be something useful in there. A house full of people tended to accumulate a lot of meds. There was some... I've never been good with medicine. Acetaminophen, I don't know. And some prescription pain pills from 3 years previously. I took all of it and went back to Jack's room. Kneeling by his head, I said, "Jack, are you awake?" I smelled puke on his breath and wondered what he and Isabel had been living in for the past 3 days. It twisted my stomach. I tried to convince myself that he somehow deserved this for making me lose Sam, but I couldn't. It took a very long moment for him to answer. "No." "Can I do anything for you to make you any more comfortable?" His voice was very small. "My head's killing me. I have some pain pills. Do you think you can keep them down?" He made a vaguely affirmative noise, so I took the glass of water from beside the bed and helped him swallow a couple of capsules. He mumbled something that might have been, "Thank you." I waited 15 minutes until the meds started to kick in and watched his body relax a little. Somewhere, Sam had this. I imagined him lying somewhere, brain exploding with pain, fever ravaging, dying. It seemed like, if something happened to Sam, I ought to know it, in some way. Feel a tiny prick of anguish the moment he died. On the bed, Jack made a small noise, an unintentional sound of pain, a little whimper in his fitful sleep. All I could think of was injecting Sam with the same blood. In my head, I kept seeing Isabel pushing it into his veins, a deadly cocktail. "I'll be right back," I told Jack, even though I thought he was sleeping. I went out into the kitchen and found Olivia leaning on the island, folding up a piece of paper. "How's he doing?" she asked. I shook my head. "We have to take him to the hospital. Can you come?" Olivia looked at me in a way that I couldn't interpret. "I think I'm ready." She pushed a piece of folded paper toward me. "I need you to find a way to give that to my parents." I started to open it, and she shook her head. I raised an eyebrow. "What is this?" "It's the note telling them I'm running away and not to try to find me. They'll still try, of course, but at least they won't think I was kidnapped or something." "You're going to change." It wasn't a question. She nodded and made another little weird face. "It's getting really hard not to, and maybe it's just because it's so unpleasant trying not to change. But I want to. I'm actually looking forward to it." I know how that sounds backwards. It didn't sound backward to me. I would have given anything to be in her place, to be with my wolves and with Sam. But I didn't want to tell her that, so I just asked the obvious question. "Are you going to change here?" Olivia gestured for me to follow her into the kitchen, and together we stood by the windows to the backyard. "I want you to see something. Look. You have to wait a second, but look." We stood at the window, looking out at the dead winter world, into the tangled underbrush of woods. For a long moment I saw nothing but a small, colorless bird that fluttered from naked branch to naked branch. Then another slight movement caught my eye, lower to the ground, and I saw a big, dark wolf in the woods. His light, nearly colorless eyes were on the house. "I don't know how they know," Olivia said, "but I feel like they're waiting for me." I suddenly realized that the expression on her face was excitement. It made me feel oddly alone. "You want to go now, don't you?" Olivia nodded. "I can't stand waiting anymore. I can't wait to let go." I sighed and looked at her eyes, very green and bright. I had to memorize them now so that I could recognize them later. I thought I ought to say something to her, but I couldn't think of what. "I'll give your letter to your parents. Be careful. I'll miss you, Olive." I slid open the glass door. Cold air blasted us. She actually laughed as the wind ripped a shiver from her. She was a strange, light creature that I didn't recognize. "See you in the spring, Grace." And she ran out into the yard, stripping sweaters as she did, and before she got to the tree line, she was a light wolf, joyful and leaping. There was none of the pain of Jack's or Sam's change. It was as if she had been meant for it. Something in my stomach twisted at the sight of her. Sadness or envy or happiness. It was just the three of us then, the three of us who didn't change. I started the car's engine to warm it, but in the end it didn't matter. 15 minutes later, Jack died. Now it was just the two of us. I'm not sure what it is, but the turtles are more active when there's less water in there. I don't understand why. There's only about that much, about that much water in a tank that's about that tall. Oh well. Chapter 63. Grace. 22 degrees Fahrenheit. I saw Olivia after that, after I'd left her note on her parents' car. She moved lightly in the twilight woods, her green eyes making her instantly identifiable. She was never alone. Other wolves guided her, taught her, guarded her from the primitive dangers of the desolate winter wood. I wanted to ask her if she'd seen him. I think she wanted to tell me no. Isabel called me a few days before Christmas break and my planned trip with Rachel. I didn't know why she called me instead of just coming over to my new car. I could see her right across the school parking lot, sitting in her SUV by herself. "How are you doing?" she asked. "I'm okay," I replied. "Liar." Isabel didn't look at me. "You know he's dead." It was easier to admit on the phone rather than face to face. "I know." Across the frosty gray parking lot, Isabel snapped her phone shut. I heard her put her SUV in gear, and then she drove it to where I stood by my car. There was a click as she unlocked the passenger side door, and a whir as the window rolled down. "Get in. Let's go somewhere." We went downtown and bought coffee, and then, because there was a parking place in front, we went to the bookstore. Isabel looked at the storefront for a long time before getting out of the car. We stood on the icy sidewalk and stared at the display window. It was all Christmas stuff, reindeer and gingerbread and It's a Wonderful Life. "Jack loved Christmas," Isabel said. "I think it's a stupid holiday. I'm not celebrating it anymore." She gestured to the store. "Do you want to go in? I haven't been in here in weeks." "I haven't been here since—" I stopped. I didn't want to say it. I wanted to go in, but I didn't want to have to say it. Isabel opened the door for me. I know. The bookstore was a different world in this gray, dead winter. The shelves, blue and slate, had taken on a different hue. The light was pure white. Classical music played overhead, but the hum of the heater was the real soundtrack. I looked at the kid behind the counter, dark-haired, lanky, bent over a book, and for a moment a lump rose in my throat, too thick to swallow. Isabel wrenched my arm hard enough to hurt. "Let's find books on getting fat." What? We went to the cookbook section. Oh, well. And sat on the floor. The carpet was cold. Isabel made a huge mess, pulling out a stack next to her and putting them back in the wrong order, and I lost myself in the neat letters of the titles on the spines, absently pulling the books out so that they were flush with one another. "I want to learn how to get fat," Isabel said. She handed me a book on pastries. "How does that look?" I paged through it. "All the measurements are in metric and no cups. You'd have to get a digital scale." "Forget that," Isabel put it back in the wrong place. Try this one. This one was all on cakes. Beautiful chocolate layers bursting with raspberries, yellow sponges smothered with fluffy buttercream, cloying cheesecakes drizzled with strawberry nectar. You can't take a piece of cake with you to school. I handed her a book on cookies and bars. Try that. This is perfect, Isabel accused, and set the book aside in a different pile. Don't you know how to shop? Being efficient isn't a good thing. It doesn't take enough time. I'm going to have to teach you the art of browsing. You're clearly deficient. Isabel taught me browsing in the cookbook section until I was restless, and then I left her behind and wandered through the store. I didn't want to, but I climbed through the burgundy carpeted stairs to the loft. The snow-clouded day outside made the loft seem darker and even smaller than it had before. But the love seat was still there, and the little waist-high bookshelves Sam had searched through. I could still see the shape of his body curled in front of them, looking for the perfect book. I shouldn't have, but I sat on the couch and lay back on it. I closed my eyes and pretended as hard as I could that Sam was lying behind me, that I was secure in his arms, and that any moment I would feel his breath move my hair and tickle my ear. That sounds disturbing. I could almost smell him here, if I tried hard enough. There weren't many places that still held his hand, but I could almost detect it. Or maybe I just wanted to so badly that I was imagining it. I remembered him urging me to smell everything in the candy shop, to give in to who I really was. I picked out the scents in the bookstore now, the nutty aroma of the leather, the almost perfumey carpet cleaner, the sweet black ink and the gasoline-smelling color inks, the shampoo of the boy at the counter, Isabel's fragrance, the scent of the memory of me and Sam kissing on this couch. I didn't want Isabel to find me with my tears any more than she wanted to find me with hers. We shared a lot of things now, but crying was the one thing we never talked about. I wiped my face dry with my sleeve and sat up. I walked to the shelf where Sam had gotten his book and scanned the titles until I recognized it, then pulled the volume out. Poems by Rainer Maria Rilke, I don't know. I never did find out how to pronounce the last name, did I? Excuse me. Sorry about that. Where was I? I lifted it to my nose to see if it was the same copy. Sam. I bought it. Isabel bought the cookbook on cookies, and we went to Rachel's place and baked 6 dozen thumbprint cookies, while carefully not talking about Sam or Olivia. Afterward, Isabel drove me home, and I shut myself in the study with Rilke, and I read, and I wanted. And leaving you, there aren't words to untangle it, your life fearful and immense and blossoming, so that sometimes frustrated and sometimes understanding, your life is sometimes a stone in you, and then a star. I was beginning to understand poetry. Chapter 64. Grace. 15 degrees Fahrenheit. It wasn't Christmas without my wolf. It was the one time of year I'd always had him, a silent presence lingering at the edge of the woods. So many times I'd sit by the kitchen window, my hands smelling of ginger and nutmeg and pine and 100 other Christmas smells, and felt his gaze on me. I'd look up to see Sam standing at the edge of the woods, golden eyes steady and unblinking. Not this year. I stood at the kitchen window, my hands smelling of nothing. No point baking Christmas cookies or trimming a tree this year. In 24 hours, I'd be gone for 2 weeks with Rachel, on a white Florida beach far away from Mercy Falls, far away from Boundary Wood, and most of all, far away from the empty backyard. I slowly rinsed out my travel cup, and for the 1000th time this winter, lifted up my gaze to look to the woods. There was nothing but trees and the shades of gray. Their snow-laden branches etched against the heavy winter sky. The only color was the brilliant flash of a male cardinal. My grandmother hated cardinals and blue jays, as she called them the gangsters of the sky. She hated them so much. Flapping to the bird feeder, he pecked at the empty wooden base before wheeling away, a red spot against the white sky. I don't know why I'm so itchy. I didn't want to go out into the backyard with its unmarked snow, devoid of paw prints, but I didn't want to leave the feeder empty while I was gone either. Retrieving the bag of birdseed from under the kitchen sink, I pulled on my coat, my hat, my gloves. I went to the back door and slid it open. The scent of the winter woods hit me hard, reminding me fiercely of every Christmas that had ever mattered. Even though I knew I was alone, I still shivered. That's sad. Chapter 65. Sam. 15 degrees Fahrenheit. I watched her. I was a ghost in the woods, silent, still, cold. I was winter embodied, the frigid wind given physical form. I stood near the edge of the woods, where the trees began to thin, and scented the air. Mostly dead smells to find this time of season. What was that? It's kind of cute. They're actively trying to swim. It's one of the tanks. It's got a hole in the side that it makes it easier to get to the filter to clean it. They're actively trying to climb up to it. Where was I? The bite of conifer, the musk of wolf, the sweetness of her. Nothing else to smell. She stood in the doorway for the space of several breaths. Her face was turned toward the trees, but I was invisible, intangible, nothing but eyes in the woods. The intermittent breeze carried her scent to me again and again, singing in another language of memories from another form. Finally, she stepped onto the deck and pressed the first footprint into the snow of the yard. And I was right there, almost right within reach, but still 1,000 miles away. Chapter 66. Grace, 15 degrees Fahrenheit. Every step I took toward the feeder took me closer to the woods. I smelled the crisp leaves of the undergrowth, shallow creeks moving sluggishly beneath a crust of ice. Some are lying dormant in unnumbered skeleton trees. Something about the trees reminded me of the wolves howling at night, and that reminded me of the golden wood of my dreams, hidden now under a blanket of snow. I missed the woods so much. I missed him. I turned my back to the trees and set the bag of birdseed on the ground beside me. All I had to do was fill the feeder and go back inside and pack my bags to fly away with Rachel, where I could try to forget every secret that hid inside these winter woods. Chapter 67. Sam, 15 degrees Fahrenheit. I watched her. She hadn't noticed me yet. She was knocking ice off the bird feeder, slowly and automatically following the steps to clean it and open it and fill it and close it and just look at it as if it was the most important thing in the world. I watched her, waited for her to turn and glimpse my dark form in the woods. She pulled her hat down over her ears, blew out a puff of breath to watch it swirl in a cloud in the air. She clapped the snow from her gloves and turned to go. I couldn't hide anymore. I blew out a long breath as well. It was a faint noise, but her head turned immediately toward it. Her eyes found the mist of my breath, and then me as I stepped through it, slow, cautious, unsure of how she would react. She froze, perfectly still, like a deer. I kept approaching, making hesitant, careful prints in the snow, until I was out of the woods, and I was standing right in front of her. She was as silent as I was, and perfectly still. Her lower lip shook. When she blinked, 3 shining tears left crystal tracks on her cheeks. She could have looked at the tiny miracles in front of her, my feet, my hands, my fingers, the shape of my shoulders beneath my jacket, my human body, but she only stared at my eyes. The wind whipped again through the trees, but it had no force, no power over me. The cold bit at my fingers, but they stayed fingers. "Grace," I said very softly. "Say something." "Sam," she said, and I crushed her to me. So what'd you guys think? I'm gonna look and see if we have the sequel. I mean, I'm all for a happy ending and everything, but I don't know. I guess enough of the story element was there for it to make sense. I don't know, I felt like it was missing something. Like one last little piece to get from where it was to where it ended. I don't know. Let me know what you guys thought. How I did first day back and everything. I'm kind of tired now. I didn't drink nearly enough water. This was a lot more draining on me than I thought it was going to be. I kind of feel like I should have just made 2 videos. But on the other hand, I think I made the right choice. Anyway, wish me luck. I wish you all the best. Let me know if you guys would be interested in certain books and what they would be. If you know where to find them, that would also be good. I have a couple of books on Amazon that I would like to order. Those would be interesting because one of them has to do with Aztec mythology. Now, it's not one of those like visual dictionary type of a book or anything. This is like an actual novel, and it has to do with the Aztec mythos. And the reason I bring it up is because for about 6 or 7 years now, I've had an idea for a book based mostly on Aztec mythology, but actually taking place when the Aztec Empire was at its height. And I think it would be fun, and it would be helpful to read this book, and if I ever do get it, I'd love to share the experience with you guys. Anyway, the books I have at my disposal right now, I have a book by Stephen King. Can you believe I've never read any of those? Any of his books at all. There's one I wanted to read. It was called Cell, but I never got around to it. Survive the Nights, right there. 3rd book from the top. You see where the little stack is kind of leaning over. I ran out of space. Let's see. I've got Star Wars The Force Awakens, the novelization. We've got the Lost Stars book. That's the one Star Wars one. I read the first chapter. I never got around to going back. Let me know if that would be interesting for you guys. And the next time I go up to the local strip mall, I'll stop by the bookstore and see if I can't find anything that would interest you guys. Or you tell me something that would be interesting to you, and I'll keep an eye out for it when I go up there. Anyway, I'm gonna relax for a little bit. I'm gonna rehydrate, and I'm gonna feed the turtles again, and I'm gonna try and take Iggy on a walk, get him some natural sunlight. I mean, he kind of gets some through the window, but it's a window, and you know how they are with blocking the UVA and UVB rays and everything. So I don't feel like he gets enough. Anyway, let me know what books would interest you, or if there are any games that you'd like to see me fail at. What was that? Sounded like a cat. Anyway, I have Doom. I might ask my buddy Adam if he would like to play. I think he has a PS4 though, so I think we'd have to Skype and he could yell at me while I'm playing. That would be interesting. I also have Town of Salem, Star Wars Rogue Squadron. That's a game I always loved but never beat. I got The Killing Floor. And I have a book down here. It's called... Where are you? That's not what it's called. Oh, I just was looking. There you are. I have this one here. It's called Blood of the Dead. I liked it up until the ending. Whoops. It's kind of inspired somewhat, if you look at the cover, by Left 4 Dead, it seems. Which were some great games, even if I had to play by myself. Anyway, that's not important. Except for the ending, I really enjoyed this book. It was relatively easy to follow. It was pretty well written, I felt. I got to the ending and I'm like, really? You went there? And I just kind of lost interest in it, so I never found the other two that come after it. So let me know if you'd be interested, and maybe this could be a reason for me to get back into the idea, because someone brought it up on one of my prior videos. I never actually reworked the ending to the short Second Life of Bree Tanner like I had meant to. So I'm going to work on that, and I'm going to work on mine and Miga's series. If you guys have any suggestions, let me know. Little quick tidbit on that. It's kind of like the Magnificent Seven meets Game of Thrones meets Batman. All of that together, and just, yeah. Anyway, like I said, I'm tired. I need some water. I need to feed the turtles. Iggy could use some food. Right, Iggy? He's angry. Anyway, sorry, I ramble a lot, I know, and a lot of you hate it. I got a lot of hate the last few days. Isn't it weird how it coincided with... Anyway, that's too much. It's just so weird that I got so much hate for me being me in probably the worst week of the year so far for me. But I also got a lot of kind words. A lot more kind words than I got hate, but anyway, it's just so strange that they all picked the same week. But I'm very grateful for those of you that had such positive and encouraging words for me, and I hope that I can live up to your expectations. And to you who said I'm easygoing, I appreciate it, but as I mentioned before, I am anything but. I am very much high-strung and anxious. Anyway, until next time, goodbye everybody, even though I think I already said that 3 minutes ago.